Japan doesn't just make good food, it makes food so good that it's worth traveling across the world for, and the reasons become clear the moment you take your first bite. Wagyu beef so precisely marbled that it melts on contact with the tongue, rather than requiring chewing. An egg sandwich so soft and well seasoned that food journalists fly to Tokyo just to eat one. And a dumpling with a crispy base and steamed top that delivers a textural contrast no other dumpling in the world replicates. These aren't niche meals or hard-to-find specialties. They're food ideas available across Japan every single day that make the standard elsewhere feel like something is missing. Today we're counting down 15 Japanese food ideas so smart they should be global. Number 1. Wagyu beef. Most beef is graded on tenderness and flavor, and most beef does reasonably well on both. Wagyu doesn't compete in that category. It operates in a different one entirely. Japanese Wagyu cattle are raised under controlled conditions that produce intramuscular fat marbling at a density that fundamentally changes the nature of the meat. The fat isn't distributed around the outside of the muscle the way it is in standard beef. It runs through the muscle itself in fine threads, distributed so evenly that every bite contains the same ratio of meat to fat, regardless of where the cut comes from. That fat melts at body temperature. You don't need to cook it to render it. Contact with the tongue is enough. The result is beef that dissolves rather than requiring chewing, with a richness and depth of flavor that has no equivalent in any other beef category in the world. Japan didn't just breed a better cow. It fundamentally rethought what beef was capable of being. Number 2. Gyoza dumpling. Every culture has a version of a dumpling. Filled dough, sealed, cooked somehow. The concept is universal. The execution varies enormously, and Japan's version produces something that most other dumpling traditions don't come close to matching in terms of textural contrast. A gyoza is pan-fried in a small amount of oil until the base develops a thin, crispy crust. Then water is added to the pan and a lid goes on immediately, creating a burst of steam that cooks the top of the dumpling through gentle heat rather than direct contact with the pan. The result is a dumpling that's simultaneously crispy on the bottom and tender on the top, with a filling of precisely seasoned pork, cabbage, garlic, and ginger that stays juicy rather than drying out during cooking. No other dumpling cooking method produces that specific contrast between the base and the top in a single step. Japan identified the gap between fried and steamed, and found the technique that occupies both at once. Number 3. Japanese KitKat flavors. A KitKat is a KitKat everywhere in the world except Japan, where it became something else entirely. Japan produces over 300 regional and seasonal KitKat flavors, developed in collaboration with local producers and seasonal ingredient suppliers across the country. Matcha from Uji, sake from Niigata, wasabi from Shizuoka, roasted sweet potato in autumn, cherry blossom in spring, Shinshu apple from Nagano. Each flavor reflects the specific ingredient culture of the region it represents. The phenomenon began when Nestlé Japan noticed that the name KitKat sounds similar to kitokatsu in Japanese, a phrase meaning surely win, making the chocolate bar a popular good luck gift for students before exams. The gift culture drove demand for variety. The variety drove regional production, and the regional production turned a standard global chocolate bar into a culturally specific, collectible, regionally distinct product that people travel across the country specifically to acquire. If you're enjoying this so far, go ahead and tap like. It tells YouTube you want more of Japan's clever, everyday innovations. And if you love discovering things you didn't even know existed, hit subscribe so you don't miss the rest of this list. Trust me, the next ones are even better. Number 4. Conveyor belt sushi. Ordering sushi in a traditional restaurant involves a menu, a decision, a waiter, a wait, and an arrival of food at a time determined by the kitchen, rather than by you. Japan looked at that process and redesigned it from the customer's perspective. Kaiten Sushi, conveyor belt sushi, places a continuous loop of freshly prepared sushi plates in front of every seat in the restaurant simultaneously. You take what you want as it passes. If something you want isn't on the belt, you order it directly and it arrives within minutes. You eat at your own pace in your own sequence, without waiting for a waiter, without navigating a menu, and without any of the social anxiety of ordering in a language you don't speak. The plates are color-coded by price. The bill is calculated by counting the plates at your seat when you're done. The entire experience is faster, more intuitive, and more enjoyable than conventional restaurant dining for the majority of people who try it. Number 5. Japanese curry roux block. Curry from scratch requires a spice collection, the knowledge of how to use it, and enough time and confidence to combine ingredients in a way that produces something worth eating. Most people don't have all three simultaneously, which is why homemade curry outside of South Asian households is attempted infrequently and executed inconsistently. Japan packaged the entire process into a block. A Japanese curry roux block is a concentrated, solid mixture of spices, fat, and flavoring agents that dissolves into a pot of browned meat, softened vegetables, and water. The roux thickens the liquid, seasons it, and produces a rich, deeply flavored Japanese curry in under 30 minutes, from a starting point of raw ingredients. The result is a curry with a specific flavor profile, slightly sweet, mildly spiced, deeply savory, that's entirely distinct from Indian, Thai, or Western curry equivalents, and has developed its own enormous global following. Japan made curry from scratch achievable for anyone, and the block it did it with produces a result consistent enough that millions of households cook it weekly. Number 6. Japanese potato salad. Potato salad exists in most countries and is largely unremarkable in most of them. Boiled potatoes, mayonnaise, occasionally some vegetables, served cold as a side dish that nobody talks about after the meal. Japan makes a version that people specifically seek out. Japanese potato salad uses potatoes that are partially mashed rather than left in chunks, producing a creamy base that holds the other ingredients rather than having them sit alongside cubes of potato in loose mayonnaise. Japanese mayonnaise replaces Western mayonnaise entirely, bringing a richer, more umami-forward flavor that standard mayo doesn't have. Thinly sliced cucumber, carrot, and sometimes ham are folded through the mixture with precise seasoning that balances sweetness, acidity, and salt in a way most potato salad recipes never achieve. The result tastes like a completely different dish from the Western version, despite being made from essentially the same ingredients. The difference is entirely in the technique, the mayonnaise, and the attention to seasoning that Japanese food culture applies to even the most everyday side dish. Number 7. Conbini hot foods counter. The hot food counter at a Western convenience store is a reliable way to make a purchasing decision you immediately regret. Rotating hot dogs of uncertain age, reheated pastries in a warmer that's been running since the previous shift, and fried items that peaked sometime before you arrived. Japan's convenience store hot food counter is a completely different proposition. At any Japanese 7-Eleven, Family Mart, or Lawson, the heated display counter holds freshly prepared items restocked throughout the day. Nikumen steamed buns filled with pork, karaage fried chicken pieces, corn dogs, oden, a winter broth with fish cakes, tofu, and vegetables that simmers in the counter itself. Seasonal items that change monthly. Everything is prepared to a quality standard that makes the equivalent Western convenience store hot food feel like it belongs to a different and significantly lower category. Japan decided that convenience store food should actually be good, and then built the supply chain, preparation standards, and restocking frequency to make that possible every single day. Number 8. Instant dashi packets. Dashi is the flavor foundation of Japanese cuisine. The clear, golden broth made from kombu seaweed and bonito tuna flakes that forms the base of miso soup, simmered dishes, noodle broths, and dozens of sauces. Without it, Japanese food loses the umami depth that makes it taste the way it does. Making it properly from scratch takes time and specific ingredients that most people outside Japan don't have immediately to hand. Japan packaged it into a tea bag. Instant dashi packets contain dried kombu and bonito sealed in a permeable paper bag. You drop one into hot water, steep for 3 minutes, and the result is a clean, properly flavored dashi broth indistinguishable in taste from one made through the full traditional method. It requires no specialist knowledge, no particular skill, and no ingredients beyond the packet and hot water. The depth of flavor it produces in 3 minutes is something Western stock cubes and powder alternatives have never come close to replicating despite decades of trying. Number 9. Takoyaki octopus balls. Street food in most countries is a version of something that already existed. A sandwich, a wrap, a skewer of grilled meat. Japan invented an entire cooking format that exists nowhere else and produces something with no equivalent in any other food culture. Takoyaki are spherical, savory snacks cooked in a special cast iron pan with hemispherical dimples. You pour batter into each dimple, add a piece of octopus, some tempura scraps, and spring onion, and then rotate each ball with a skewer as the batter sets, building the sphere from 2 half-cooked halves that fuse together into a perfect round. The finished takoyaki are dressed with a sweet, savory sauce, Japanese mayonnaise, dried bonito flakes, and seaweed powder. The bonito flakes wave from the heat of the dish when it's served, which is either unsettling or fascinating depending on whether you've seen it before. The interior stays molten for several minutes after serving. The exterior is crisp, the filling is soft, slightly chewy, and completely unlike anything else you can buy from a street cart anywhere in the world. Number 10. Japanese convenience store egg sandwich. The Tamago Sando, Japan's convenience store egg sandwich, has achieved something that almost no convenience store product anywhere in the world has managed. It became internationally famous on its own merits, not as a novelty or a cultural curiosity, but as a genuinely exceptional piece of food that happens to be sold next to batteries and phone chargers. The bread is Japanese milk bread, impossibly soft with a thin crust that compresses rather than tears when you bite through it. The filling is egg salad made with Japanese mayonnaise, seasoned with a precision that produces a flavor just slightly sweet, slightly tangy, and deeply savory simultaneously. The ratio of filling to bread is generous enough that every bite contains more egg than bread, which is the inverse of most Western egg sandwiches. Food writers, travel journalists, and chefs visiting Japan consistently cite it as one of the best things they ate on the trip. It costs the equivalent of about $2 and is available fresh every morning at every convenience store in the country. Number 11. Japanese mayonnaise. Standard Western mayonnaise is made from whole eggs, vegetable oil, and vinegar. It works, it does the job. It tastes like mayonnaise, and most people have never questioned whether mayonnaise could taste significantly better than it does. Japanese mayonnaise, led by the Kewpie brand, is made exclusively from egg yolks rather than whole eggs, with rice vinegar replacing standard vinegar and a small addition of MSG that most manufacturers don't list prominently. The yolk-only base produces a richer, creamier texture with a deeper yellow color. The rice vinegar brings a milder, slightly sweeter acidity. The overall flavor is more complex, more umami-forward, and more rounded than standard mayonnaise in a way that's immediately noticeable in direct comparison. People who encounter Japanese mayonnaise for the first time typically go through the same sequence: mild skepticism, a first taste, a pause, and then an immediate understanding of why it has a dedicated international following and why most people who buy it once continue buying it indefinitely. Number 12. Japanese fruit cultivation. Fruit exists on a spectrum in most countries between acceptable and good. Japan operates at a point on that spectrum so far beyond good that most people who encounter premium Japanese fruit describe it as tasting like a different food entirely from what they thought they knew. Yubari King melons are grown one per plant, with all the plant's energy directed into a single fruit. Shine Muscat grapes are cultivated to a sweetness and texture standard that makes standard supermarket grapes taste thin and acidic. Bijin Hime strawberries are grown to a size and flavor concentration that places them in a category of their own. The cultivation techniques involve precise control of sunlight exposure, water content, temperature, and soil composition at every stage of growth. Individual fruits are wrapped, monitored, and assessed throughout the season. The result is produce that redefines what the fruit was always capable of becoming if every resource available to the plant was directed toward making it perfect rather than making it abundant. Number 13. Tempura batter technique. Frying food in batter is one of the most common cooking techniques in the world, and in most versions it produces the same result. A thick, doughy coating that absorbs oil during frying sits heavily around whatever is inside it and becomes progressively less pleasant as it cools. Japan's tempura batter is the opposite of all of that. The technique requires ice-cold water, minimal flour, and a mixing approach so brief it leaves visible lumps and unmixed streaks in the batter intentionally. The cold temperature slows gluten development. The minimal mixing prevents the structure formation that makes other batters thick and doughy. The result is a batter so thin and airy it barely exists around the ingredient it coats. In hot oil, the water in the batter vaporizes almost instantly, creating a structure of tiny air pockets that produce a coating which shatters rather than compresses when bitten. It doesn't absorb oil, it doesn't sit heavily, it disappears on contact and leaves the ingredient inside, tasting like itself rather than like fried dough. Number 14. Japanese ramen. Ramen is one of the most globally recognized Japanese foods and one of the most misunderstood outside Japan. The instant version, available in every supermarket worldwide, shares a name and a format with the real thing and almost nothing else. A bowl of ramen from a dedicated ramen shop is built from a broth that has been simmering for up to 18 hours. Pork bones, chicken frames, kombu, aromatics, all cooked low and slow until the collagen converts to gelatin, and the liquid thickens naturally into something with a body and depth that no powder sachet has ever replicated. The broth is then seasoned with a tare, a concentrated flavoring unique to each shop, before noodles, chashu pork, a soft-boiled egg marinated in soy, bamboo shoots, and nori are added in precise quantities and arrangements. Every component is prepared separately and assembled to order. The result is a bowl of food that represents hours of work, a specific culinary philosophy, and a flavor depth that makes instant ramen feel like a different product entirely, which it is. Number 15. Onigiri rice ball. The onigiri is one of those food ideas so logical and so well executed that it's difficult to explain why the rest of the world hasn't adopted it as a standard portable meal format decades ago. A ball or triangle of seasoned rice with a filling sealed at the center, wrapped in a sheet of nori that stays crisp until the moment of eating because of a dual-layer packaging system that keeps the seaweed separated from the rice until you pull the tab to open it. The filling varies: tuna mayo, pickled plum, grilled salmon, mentaiko. Dozens of options at any convenience store, each one a complete, balanced, single-serving meal that requires no utensils, no plate, no refrigeration for several hours, and produces almost no packaging waste. It costs the equivalent of about $1. It's made fresh multiple times daily at every convenience store in Japan. And it delivers a more nutritionally complete and genuinely satisfying portable meal than anything the Western fast food or convenience store industry has produced in the same price range. If you want to see more amazing things Japan is doing better than the rest of the world, then like and subscribe. And make sure to watch the video on your end screen. It's packed with even more amazing food ideas.